Thanks so much, everyone, for oh my goodness, more and more. Maybe I should wait like another minute. I don't know. I don't want to be rude. But thanks everyone for joining today. This is going to be a short and sweet talk from me because I really want to get to the questions. And I've got some really good ones in the run up too, so I've popped those in. But if you have any other questions throughout, if you go to the top next to chat in Teams, there's a Q&A button, and if you add your question in there, then yeah, I'll try and get to it. I'm trying to get as many questions answered as possible. But yeah, onto the talk. This is why I'm talking today. LinkedIn has become a bit of a tire fire of AI generated content about AI optimization lately. At least my feed kind of feels like that. And I suspect if you're here that you're feeling the same thing. And sifting through it all to find something worth engaging with is tricky enough if you're a search specialist, let alone if you're just trying to work out what your brand needs to do next. And actually, this is one that I spotted about a month ago, and it just made me snort because rank number one in ChatGPT tomorrow. I screenshotted it. I posted it on LinkedIn. But this is obscuring the offender with snake emojis. And what I found is actually quite a lot of people turned up in my DMs, which tells you this stuff is absolutely everywhere. And it really touched a nerve. But boiling it down, there is no such thing as ranking number one in ChatGPT. I shared SparkToro's research, which found that the ranking order is essentially random. And the trouble is this kind of stuff is starting to erode trust in something that's actually really important. AI is here to stay. So, we need to be optimizing for it. But what does credible work on AI visibility actually look like? And how do you spot the nonsense before it starts essentially costing you money? So, just to highlight why AI visibility matters, AI referral traffic to US high street retailers rose 760% year on year in November 2025. Zara now gets 15% of its referral traffic from AI. H&M gets 8%. Business of Fashion partnered with Quilt AI earlier this year and researched how different high street brands perform across ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And that matters in high street fashion because brand loyalty is much lower there. When someone's shopping for purpose, and they're just looking for what should I wear for a wedding in June, or where do I get good basics? These are my measurements. They're not thinking I want Gucci. They're thinking I want something that works. And so whoever shows up in that answer is going to win. So they measured 4 things. Clarity, does AI know what you are? Coherence, does it know what you stand for? Dominance, how often are you recommended? And prominence, how do you perform versus competitors? Uniqlo, interestingly, top dominance, and it wasn't through brand marketing spend, it was through these viral moments. Tote bag that everyone was talking about on social, barrel trousers, JW Anderson collaboration. The conversation became what AI learned from in this space. Zara, meanwhile, photography, people talk about it on social. It has a very distinctive look, people kind of joke about, but it's never really the clothes in the conversation. The products don't have a coherent identity, neither really does the brand. And so coherence was much lower as a result. People can't quite figure out what Zara is. AI can't either, because it's too many things to too many different people. Volume isn't always the win. It's actually quite a reassuring conclusion if you're sitting there wondering how to compete with big brands. But yeah, that's the good kind of stuff that you see. But most of what you see falls into these 4 buckets. So you got pure bollocks, you've got shallow insight dressed up as strategy, you've got stuff that's mostly right, but then with misinformation Trojan horsed in. And then occasionally you have something worth reading. So bucket 1, utter nonsense. The ad I mentioned is a prime example, but there's plenty more. Posts that clearly misrepresent how AI interprets and presents brands. It's often dressed up as insider knowledge. That's a really good tell. Bucket two is that shallow insight dressed up as strategy. So here's one I pulled out earlier. AI doesn't reward visibility, it rewards survival. The hook is really sharp. Brands that appear early in AI responses are being eliminated before the final decision. And the stat sounds credible. 87% of brands visible early are cut by the end of a multi-turn conversation. A smart, busy marketing director would share that. You'd read it and you think that's interesting, but then it just stops. And also, like, where have they got this information from? It seems very difficult to work out how they would have even got that. And it just declares that GEO is insufficient and gestures vaguely towards something called decision intelligence, but there's no explanation of what that means. And then you have bucket three, the misinformation Trojan horse. And I think this is the most insidious category. I've got lots of examples, which I'm going to try and work out how to send to you after this, because like trying to trim this one down. Yeah, what makes it dangerous is it starts with something useful, right? So this one correctly notes that ChatGPT decomposes one question into dozens of subqueries. And that citations are the new backlinks. That's actually quite a reasonable shorthand. So you start nodding along, and then it says that ChatGPT runs 8 stages to decide what gets cited, and this is presented as established fact, but this is actually an invented framework, and it's dressing up knowledge about, it's dressing up as scientific knowledge about how LLMs work. And these frameworks aren't always like malicious, but they train marketers to think about LLMs as predictable machines that you can hack, and they aren't. So why is that so dangerous? This story from the BBC is doing the rounds. A journalist proved that you can get AI to say almost anything, in his words, using a single piece of content on a crawlable site. There is some vulnerability there. Of course, the nicheness of this topic, the best hot dog eating tech journalist, is doing quite a lot of the heavy lifting here. And so this kind of story makes people think that gaming AI works, but there are so many caveats here. No one else makes content about, or frankly cares about, the top hot dog eating tech journalist. And Google is already deprioritizing self-serving best of list content in search results. And by the time BBC Future is exposing a tactic like this, the window is already closing. This is not a long-term solution, and it frankly wasn't a short-term one either. But the dodgy frameworks that I've been describing do the same thing in reverse. They train your mental model of AI to be wrong, so you end up investing in tactics that are built on false premises. So what actually works? I'll be straight with you about what we know and what we are still working out. So 1, there are no rankings to win. SparkToro ran nearly 3,000 AI responses and found less than 1 in 100 chance of getting the same brand list twice. Every response is different. There is no number 1 ranking. What you can do instead is track share of model. You run the same query 50 times. How often does your brand appear? That percentage is your visibility score. It's not precise, it's a range and it shifts, but it tells you whether you're in the conversation, tells you whether you're moving in the right direction. And that's the more honest version of GEO measurement. Also, AI reads what Google can crawl. Editorial coverage in publications, AI lists, Reddit threads, YouTube, review sites, niche industry blogs. If your expertise lives behind a login, it doesn't exist to AI systems. Gated content gates out AI too. Then Zara's problem is your lesson. AI rewards being consistently understood. We want, multiple sources saying similar things about your brand. This is how you are understood through consistency. And nobody is typing 2 words into ChatGPT anymore. queries that trigger AI answers more than doubled in length between 2024 and 2025. When people use AI, they ask questions that are specific, contextual, and conversational. And actually, the longer they use it, the longer their prompts get. There are also so those are the things we know. There are also a lot of red flags out there. This is something I shared before, and it can be in the post-webinar materials as well. When you're being pitched a GEO or AI visibility service, think of these as your quick filter. I'll run through them very quickly. But red flags are vague promises, proprietary frameworks that are just repackaging basic PR, secret hacks, guaranteed numbers, and then if it's jargon that feels like it's designed for you to nod along, but you don't really understand what's being said, that's again a really big clue. Green flags, on the other hand, are people who speak plainly, cite real research, acknowledge uncertainty, and focus on building authority for your brand over time. But yeah, this will all be in post-webinar materials too, because I appreciate it's got pretty small on your screen there. So what does good look like in practice? I was talking to a client's SEO lead about AI vulnerabilities, and he'd asked ChatGPT to recommend a tool, and it was citing the tool's own blog as a source for which is the best tool. Sounds familiar, right? He called it greasy, and I agreed. And as we've established, that window was very much closing. So this is what we did instead, to understand how to be recommended as the best in your field. So we ran a structured prompt audit across Perplexity, AI Overviews, and Claude. And we had 3 types of queries. ChatGPT, that's going mad. 3 types of queries, broad category, best for a specific type of customer, and then brand versus named competitors. And we ran each many times over. We pulled every citation, not just what AI said, but what it was reading in order to say it. And findings were quite different to what you'd expect as an SEO. So specialist community sites, unheard of charities, websites with relatively low domain authority, but were quite topically precise, were showing up. Meanwhile, some of the really high authority domains that you'd expect to be just seen as expert actually absent. And that's where working closely with PRs is so valuable, because they know the media landscape inside out. And so we can sort of spot, hang on, there's someone missing here. But then also you can dig into the tactics. So how is the brand appearing in the articles that AI prefers? How are competitors appearing? What angle is the journalist going to run with? How does it serve their reader? And how can the brand position itself to be the better answer? And it's like finding that Venn diagram of the brand's own position and then what the journalist wants to say. It's involved work, but it starts with the data and moves to a comm strategy, and it's built around relationship building, turns PR into a targeting brief. So we do this work alongside our retainer, which is all about positioning the brand consistently so that people and AI understand what that brand stands for. So basically, a good AI visibility strategy looks like good marketing strategy has always looked. It's building genuine authority, being clearly understood, and being seen in the places that people and now AI trust. The agencies worth hiring, or the people worth having that chat with, are the ones who tell you they can't control ChatGPT, but they can influence the sources it's reading. Right, okay, how's our time? I've gone a little bit over, but I've got lots of questions, and really nice ones sent in. So I'm going to start with the ones I had already, because there were some like crackers, and then I'm going to try and get to your Q&A ones. So far I've got new posts, good. It just doesn't automatically update, which is a bit spooky. I thought no one was talking to me. Okay, first one, how do I measure my AI visibility? And you've got 2 layers to this. So first is to look at citations in Google AI Overviews, because these show source links. You can see what content's being pulled in. You can basically treat this as an early indicator for ChatGPT with a few caveats. It doesn't work exactly the same, but ChatGPT works with live retrieval and training data, so there's a bit of a lag. Whereas Google AI Overviews always has live retrieval because it's Google. That's how Google works. Second, use tools to measure share of model, which I've talked about. So we use ZipTie. Clients of ours use Profound, and you can do manual prompt sampling. We did that a while back before the tools caught up. It's slow and not that fun, but it is possible. You run the same query many times and look at the percentage of responses that include you, gives you a range, tells you whether you're in the conversation, that kind of thing. What you can't do is track how many people found you via ChatGPT directly. You can set up Google Analytics to show you traffic referred from ChatGPT's domains. That is trackable. But how many people are searching for you inside ChatGPT is information that they will never share, basically. Whereas RFs can give you kind of prediction of branded search on Google, there's no equivalent for these AI tools, and they're not going to change that. Their whole proposition is about keeping you on their platform, not sending you to the open web. They are different to Google. So anyone claiming that they can give you that number is guessing at best, and I would stay well away, basically. How is GEO different from SEO? Should I have a separate strategy? GEO is slightly different from SEO, but the activities that drive AI visibility, I feel like I'm going to repeat myself over and over, but editorial PR, authoritative content, consistent brand narrative are the same ones that drive organic search. Where they diverge is measurement, and there's a slight shift in priorities. SEO gives you ranking positions, GEO gives you visibility percentage. What annoys me is when people say the content for AI needs to answer questions in full sentences rather than rank for keyword variants. And it's making a straw man out of SEO and making this false dichotomy. And it's like good GEO, good SEO has always been about making great content. Like keyword stuffing is so outdated, it just doesn't work. So it's really frustrating when you see that, and it's all over the LinkedIn posts as well that you see. Likewise, PR targeting, it includes the publication's AI sites, whereas it's not just the ones of highest domain authority. You can be a bit more agnostic about DA when it comes to niche topics in GEO, but that's also what good PR looks like, understanding who's talking in your niche and where the conversations are valuable. And your brand narrative needs to be consistent enough for AI to understand what you do. Again, the clue is in the fact that you know what I'm talking about when we say when you say brand narrative. This isn't new. This is what good marketing is. So the honest version is, if you work with an SEO who is dyed in the wool, more regimented than strategic, then they might struggle to flex for this, but a strategic partner will know where their knowledge applies and where to adapt. Does social media content help with AI visibility? Short answer, yes. AI pulls from Reddit, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok was actually the most scraped website in 2025. These platforms are part of what AI learned from. But you have to earn real conversation. Uniqlo did well because people bought products and talked about them. But it's about having products and campaign moments that are worth talking about. So we work for a charity and for accountants. In one of our campaigns, we work with social media influencers who are all accountants or ex-accountants who'd left for mental health reasons. We published original research about burnout in the accountancy sector, created a viral moment about it, and make sure it landed across multiple platforms, including social. And what we saw was a really huge pickup, but in Reddit, the kind of spaces that's very difficult for brands to land, but dedicated Reddit forums, it were humming. People were talking about the data they'd read, our original data, and the influencers they followed, and the broader story about burnout. So yeah, the data is in the center. But yeah, what we could see is that yeah, in AI overviews immediately, we could see the brand being referenced, but yeah, also in ChatGPT. So that was really exciting. What do you do if your competitor is gaming AI with fake reviews? I thought this was a really interesting question. I'd say first, document it. So run the prompts yourself, note what AI says about them, note the sources it's citing, and then screenshot it, because that's useful understanding what you're up against, but it's also evidence. And then the second thing is to report it. So fake reviews on Trustpilot, there are violation processes, so flag it. And then if they've published false claims, depending on your sector, there may well be a regulator who would be very interested to hear about it. And then I think the most important thing is to outcompete it. If they're building on sand, focus on building on rock. Can't speak today. So BBC proved that fake content can get in, but you can bet that AI platforms are working out how to patch this. And actually, the more authoritative, genuine content you have, the more endorsements from third parties who are genuine, the more it crowds out the manipulated stuff. The one thing I wouldn't do is do the same thing. You know, you're building a brand for years, not weeks. So it's just not worth the risk to your reputation to publish fake reviews. I got a question about regulated industries and whether AI works differently. And this one, I think what goes on is it's the principles are the same, but the stakes are obviously higher and the constraints are higher too. But that can actually work in your favor. So in AI, in regulated sectors, AI systems are more cautious about what they recommend. It's a bit like Google and your money or your life topics. But for AI, they're more likely to hedge, more likely to say consult a professional, and they're more likely to cite just the really most authoritative institutional sources, which means being cited alongside or within those authoritative contexts is huge for brand trust. The constraint is you can't just create content and throw it up, but then you weren't doing that anyway, because everything in a regulated industry needs sign off. You're working within compliance frameworks and your review cycle is longer. I got this question about how do you explain LLM brand visibility to the board when they're still wrapping their heads around traditional search and SEO? And I would say start with people, right? Like don't start with the technology, start with the consumer behavior change. So if you say your customers are increasingly starting their purchase journey by asking a question to an AI assistant rather than typing into Google. And when you do that, is your brand there? Because if you're not, that means you're not in the consideration set. And that is a business problem. And then the business of fashion numbers that I shared up top might be helpful too. So referral traffic up 760% year on year to major retailers. That is quite a CFO friendly number that makes the case without needing to explain what LLMs are and how they work. And the second framing is you don't need a separate AI strategy budget for this. The activities that drive AI visibility, PR, authoritative content, consistent brand positioning are the same things your existing marketing should already be building. What changes is how you prioritize and target them. So it's not a new line item. It's just making your existing investment work harder. So yeah, customer behavior first, business impact second, what we're doing about it third. Oh, I've got lots more questions coming in. This is good. Our brand gets mentioned in Reddit, but not always positively. Does that help or harm our visibility? I love this question too. And the answer is, honestly, it depends, but it's more nuanced than you'd think. So negative mentions do feed AI training data. Reddit threads about your brand are they are consistently, it's especially on AI overviews, it does get absorbed. And so it can absorb that framing. If ChatGPT is describing your brand in a way that feels slightly off or hedging in a way that you don't like, Reddit could be part of why. But negative discussions at least means you're in the consideration set. And in my experience, Reddit conversations are rarely just one-sided. It's not that much of a conversation. So even the critical threads tend to have some people defending the brand or pulling out sort of follow-up questions or sort of complexities and sharing their experiences. And actually that complexity is what AI learns from. So what you can do if you're feeling like, God, it's really negative, I wouldn't try to suppress or game Reddit. It's going to backfire. But you can influence the ratio. So if your brand is generating genuine positive stories, customers who had a great experience, products people talk about, campaign that landed, that conversation will dilute the negative over time. I've got a few more here, but I can see there's lots I'm trying to get through so I can get to the live questions. Oh gosh, I've only got 3 minutes left. Okay. Agency is pitching me a geo package. How do I evaluate it? 4 questions I would be asking. So first, what does success look like and how will you measure it? If they start talking about guaranteed placements, you know you can stop right there. They don't know what they're talking about. 2, what will you actually be doing? It should sound recognizable. If they start talking about proprietary methodology, ask them to explain it in plain language. Good work shouldn't be a secret. Then ask or check, do you show up yourself? You know, if you ask ChatGPT about marketing agencies, do they appear? Because if not, that's worth noting, because if they were good enough at doing this for you, then they should be able to do it for themselves, right? And then ask them what research they're citing. So Spark Toro's article, Business of Fashions project, these are all very, very clear about their methodology and what they found and even where the gaps are in their knowledge. The credible work is public. Our own proprietary data with no methodology should have you, frankly, running for the hills. I've got a couple more. How quickly does AI visibility change? And I feel like we can talk about this 2 timescales here. You've got live retrieval, which AI overviews are a very good early indicator because Google is exclusively live retrieval. ChatGPT, there's a bit of a lag because of training data. Cut off at the moment is around August 2025. But yeah, if you're looking for a shortcut, don't. The brands that will be well positioned when the training data refreshes are the ones that are consistently cited as authorities. That takes much longer, but it's worth doing, always has been. Is it worth investing in GEO now, or is it too early? And I'd say not too early. That 15% Zara figure is significant, 8% for H&M. I hear from B2B brands saying that there's a real traffic drop off and it's not explained by AI overviews. And then when they talk to their customers, they hear it anecdotally over and over. People are finding them through AI, and there's also tells about they're just more informed. So basically, should I invest in GEO translates to, is my marketing building the kind of authority that AI systems recognize? Yes, and the earlier you start thinking about this, the more ahead you'll be. And what's exciting about it is AI is actually more egalitarian than SEO and often in lots of contexts. So in SEO, big brands win because they have all the authority and can go after the big generic keywords. Smaller brands with in a niche sort of struggle to compete. Yeah, you know, we mentioned our client who was a charity. You know, if you can talk about what you're doing in a way that's really specific, you know your audience really well, actually you can build pages and a social strategy around content that's easy for AI to pass and consistent across platforms, very clearly positioned, and then you're way ahead. Okay, questions from the floor. And oh my goodness, if I've used up more time than I was expecting, I'm sorry, guys. But okay, I've got a really nice one here. Let's have a look. I'm a one-person marketing team at a small brand. Everyone's telling me AI optimization is the next big thing, but I'm already stretched. Where do I start? I feel like the last plate to spin, last thing you need is another plate to spin. what you can do is make sure the basics are in place. So basically asking, is your marketing already working? And yeah, if it is, then yeah, lots of this is already happening. But start by asking, so go to ChatGPT or Perplexity, Google AI overviews, and ask what your customers would search for, and determine whether your brand is appearing, and if so, what does it say? If not, who is? And if you're not appearing, then you've got a few reasons for why that could be, but I would push back on the idea that AI visibility is a separate job. The activities that get you into AI answers being written about in credible publications, having reviews on the right platforms, creating content that answers the questions your audience is asking, these are just good marketing. So if you're doing those things, you're already building it. If you're not doing those things, then that's the problem to solve. And that was actually a problem before GEO was a word that anyone used. So yeah, light touch audit, I would say, find your one biggest gap and then fix that, and it will have, yeah, it will support the rest of what you're doing too. Okay, let's have a look. I found, if you spot red flags in a pitch, but you still want your team to invest in GEO, what should you do? I would frame it as protecting investment rather than killing the idea. So your team is interested in GEO for a reason. AI visibility matters. The problem isn't the goal, it's the method. So instead of saying, I don't think these guys know what they're doing, I think it's, I want to make sure we're spending this budget on something that's going to still work in 2 years. And then you can ask those 4 questions I mentioned before. And then, you know, that red flags table that I'm going to be sharing, that can also be a useful framework. You're not saying that the idea or the partner you're speaking to is bad. You're just saying that these are industry standards that we should be holding any GEO pitch or partner to. Okay, let's have a look at others. Is AI visibility killing traditional SEO? I hate this. The number of SEO is dead articles that I've read throughout my career, and also like search engine journal pieces with the big article at the top. There's a picture of Google on fire, and it's always wrong. Google search traffic very much still exists. Google is still dominant for most demographics. We're marketers, so we're early adopters. AI overviews are part of Google. They just don't appear for every query because Google is quite good at working out what search engine results page is best for that given search. But what is changing is AI summarizes the answers and fewer people click through. So if you're an SEO who pins their whole value on traffic, then you're going to have to very quickly rethink how you demonstrate your value. But authority building and editorial presence, genuine expertise, consistent brand signals, that's very much still alive. And if you've been keeping track, this is what I've been saying drives AI visibility too. Okay, let's have a look. Is there anything brands can do without a big PR budget? Yes, 3 things I would say. I hope it's going to be 3. See where we go. So get on the review platforms. Make sure you're actively check out which ones are actually being pulled, and get on them and make sure you're getting good reviews. Use your CRM. Use it. Yeah. Talk to your customers. Make sure that you are joining up all your marketing to support that. Write content that answers the questions your customers are having. Talk to your customer service. Work out actually, you know, sometimes it's different to what you think. It's not always about, you know, keywords. Take the time to understand your audience. And also I say get on Reddit and lurk. This is definitely going to be more than 3 things. Get on Reddit and lurk there. Use it to understand your audience and what they're discussing. And if you can, just get on the phone with them. The more of that detail you can get, the more you'll really understand what the main thing to focus on is. And then, yeah, when it comes to PR, it's partnering with PR and storytellers to work out what is that cornerstone story, the place where your brand actually matters the most. You know, if we're going to go all in one place, where should that be, and make that the focus of your PR. And that can get you into trade media, can help you answer a specific question. It can do more for your AI visibility than like a big splashy national placement that doesn't mean much to your audience, essentially. So yeah, you don't need a huge budget. Obviously, working in a PR agency, it's nice to see the big budgets, but basically you want to understand the core problem of your audience and what they're talking about. Cool. I have maybe time for one more. Oh, I've gone way over. Maybe, okay, a fun one maybe. What's the most ridiculous AI visibility post you've seen on LinkedIn? I spotted that one earlier. That's a nice one. The rank in ChatGPT tomorrow ad, I screenshotted and posted. That's the one that started. But I think the funniest to me is when it's very clearly written about AI, but for AI, by AI, for AI seemingly, and about AI, and it's claiming to explain it, but there's just this cute, like weird irony that, and you start spotting like these terms that you're like, delve into, and like 17 M dashes telling you how to make your content sound more human. You're like, this is just like, who is this for? Have you even read it? And then the most egregious ones are when you start seeing it with like a notebook, a picture of a notebook. I don't know if you've seen these, but it's like the picture of the notebook is AI generated. Someone's can't even bother to get a real notebook and pen and draw out some diagrams. It's like where the bar is on the floor. Like, can you not just draw on a notebook? Like, be real. So yeah, I find that quite egregious, and they are actually all over the place. And it's just it's so untrustworthy, and a really good tell actually that someone's probably got some bollocks to spout. Okay, I've gone over by a lot. I think thanks so much everyone for your time, and I'm going to share the recording and all the stuff I talked about, and there's lots more questions, so I'm going to try and get to those too, because yeah, I love nerding out about this. But yeah, thank you so much. Right, thanks.